AITA for refusing to give up my late wife's dog, even though my new fiancé says it's disrespectful to keep him around. I, 36, lost my wife, Emily, 4 years ago to cancer. We've been together since college, married for almost 10 years. When things got bad toward the end, we adopted a golden retriever named Cooper. Emily said she wanted a piece of happiness around the house, something to make me smile when she no longer could. Cooper was 6 months old when she passed. He's now 5, and he's the best dog you could imagine. Gentle, goofy, and still sleeps with his head on Emily's old blanket. After Emily's death, I fell apart for a while. I took time off work, barely left the house, and the only reason I even got up in the morning was because Cooper needed to be walked and fed. Over time, he became my emotional anchor. When people talk about emotional support animals, that's Cooper to me. He was there for me when nobody else could be. About a year and a half ago, I met my current fiancée, Laura, 32F. She's wonderful in so many ways, smart, driven, beautiful, and she helped me rediscover parts of life I thought I'd lost. We've been living together for about 8 months, and she recently proposed that we start planning our wedding for next summer. Everything was fine until Cooper became an issue. Laura never really bonded with him. She's not a dog person. She doesn't dislike him, but she doesn't really engage either. When we first moved in together, I made sure Cooper didn't sleep in the bed, something he used to do before, and I tried to keep his stuff tidy. Still, Laura would make little comments about how dog smell lingers, or how she can't relax on the couch when he's shedding everywhere. I tried to compromise by keeping Cooper groomed more often and buying air purifiers. A few weeks ago, Laura sat me down and told me she'd been thinking about something important for our future. She said she felt that Cooper's presence in our life was holding us back. When I asked what that meant, she said, "He's a constant reminder of your late wife. I feel like I'm living with both of you." That comment hit me like a punch. I told her Cooper wasn't some ghost of Emily. He's a living, breathing animal who loves me and whom I love deeply. She said she understood, but that it still felt emotionally disrespectful to keep him when we're supposed to be building a new life together. I honestly thought she was joking at first, but she doubled down. She told me she wants a fresh start and suggested that I rehome Cooper to a family that can give him their full attention. I told her that's not happening. Cooper is family. This turned into a massive argument. She accused me of valuing a dog over our relationship and said I was emotionally unavailable because I hadn't fully let go of Emily. I said Emily's memory is part of me, and pretending she never existed isn't healthy or fair. Laura started crying and said she didn't want to compete with a dead woman and her dog. Since then, the atmosphere at home has been tense. She's polite to Cooper but distant, and she's barely spoken to me about anything personal. 2 nights ago, she told me she'd made up her mind. If we're going to get married, Cooper has to go. Otherwise, I can't do this. I told her that if that's her condition, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married. She stared at me in disbelief and said, "So that's it? You're choosing a dog over me?" I said I was choosing not to abandon the only living being who helped me survive the worst time of my life. Now she's staying at her sister's place to think. Her sister texted me saying I'm being cruel and obsessive about a dog, that I'm sabotaging a good relationship over something that should be in the past. Here's the thing, I do love Laura. I want a future with her. But Cooper isn't just a pet. He's family. He's the one constant that carried me through unimaginable grief. Letting him go feels like betraying both him and Emily's memory. A few friends are split. My best friend says Laura's being unreasonable, but another mutual friend said maybe I need therapy to process why I can't let go. I am in therapy, and my therapist actually knows about Cooper. She said the bond is healthy and that it's normal to hold on to connections that brought stability during grief. Still, I can't shake the guilt. Am I really choosing a dog over a human relationship? Or am I setting a boundary that she just can't accept? Some part of me wonders if Laura would ever really be comfortable with any part of my past. If it weren't Cooper, maybe it would be the photos I still have of Emily in storage, or the way I still visit her parents once a year on her birthday. But hearing someone call Cooper a reminder of her dead wife just broke something in me. He's not a symbol. He's my friend. I haven't told Laura this, but when Emily was dying, she made me promise one thing. Please don't let Cooper end up alone. She was worried he'd go to a shelter if I couldn't handle it after she was gone. I promised her I wouldn't, and I meant it. Now I feel trapped between honoring that promise and building a life with someone new who says that promise is keeping me from moving on. I honestly don't know what the right thing to do is anymore. When I imagine my life without Cooper, it feels empty, not because of Emily, but because he's a huge part of my daily existence. He's there when I wake up, when I come home, when I'm at my lowest. When I imagine my life without Laura, it hurts, but not in the same way. More like a heartbreak I might eventually heal from, not a void I can't fill. So I told her one last time over text, I can't give up Cooper. I love you, but that's a line I can't cross. She hasn't replied. Her sister posted something vague on social media about people who can't move forward because they're chained to the past, which feels directed at me. I keep wondering if this is one of those situations where nobody's technically wrong, but love just isn't enough. Or if I really am the asshole for refusing to compromise. All I know is that right now, as I'm typing this, Cooper is curled up beside me, resting his head on my knee like he always does. And for the first time since this all started, I don't feel guilty about choosing him. I just feel sad that someone I love couldn't understand why. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to give up my late wife's dog for my fiancé. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he banned my service dog because his fiancée doesn't want animals ruining her photos. So, I, 28F, have a golden retriever named Luna. She's not a pet. She's my fully trained service dog. I was diagnosed with severe anxiety and panic disorder about 6 years ago, and Luna helped me stay functional. She's been trained to recognize panic symptoms, lead me out of crowded areas, apply pressure therapy, and even alert me if I'm about to have a fainting episode. She's basically the reason I can go out and live something close to a normal life. My younger brother Jake, 26M, is getting married next spring to his fiancée, Melissa, 25F. We've always had an okay relationship. Not super close, but not hostile either. Melissa, on the other hand, has always seemed a bit standoffish toward me. She's polite but cold, and there's this unspoken vibe that she tolerates me because of Jake. Whatever, I don't need her to be my best friend. A few months ago, we got the wedding invitations, and I noticed something odd. The venue is a fancy country club that's known for being strict about decorum. I called Jake to confirm if Luna would be allowed since I obviously need her to attend. He hesitated before saying, actually, that might be an issue. Melissa's been really firm about no animals at the wedding. I told him that Luna isn't a pet and that by law, service dogs are allowed in public venues, especially since she's necessary for my medical condition. Jake said he'd talk to Melissa and get back to me. A week later, I got a text from Melissa that honestly made my jaw drop. She said, "Hey, I know Luna means a lot to you, but this is our special day. I've dreamed about this wedding my whole life, and I don't want an animal in the photos or distracting anyone. I'm sure you understand." I replied, "I do understand that it's your day, but Luna is a medical necessity for me. I can't just leave her home. She doesn't bark, shed excessively, or cause problems." Melissa responded, "I'm sorry, but no. You could take your meds or something, right? I don't think a dog belongs at a formal event." That message really hurt. I sent it to Jake and asked if he agreed. He said, "Please don't make this a big deal. It's one day. Can't you just come without her? I'll make sure you have a quiet place to go if you feel overwhelmed." I told him it's not about convenience, it's about safety. Without Luna, I could have a panic attack in front of hundreds of people. He said I was being dramatic and selfish. A few days later, my parents got involved. My mom called, saying, "Honey, it's Jake's wedding. Maybe just skip it if it's going to cause problems." My dad was more sympathetic, but still said, "You might want to pick your battles." So I made my decision. I told Jake I loved him, but I wouldn't attend if Luna wasn't allowed. He told me I was prioritizing a dog over family. That cut deep. I reminded him that Luna isn't just a dog, and that his venue legally can't ban her, but I wasn't going to force my way into a situation where I clearly wasn't wanted. Melissa then went on social media with a post that said, "Can we please have one day without someone making it about them? Some people just have to bring drama everywhere." It was vague, but everyone in our circle knew it was about me. I got messages from some extended family saying I should apologize and just go without Luna to keep the peace. Others said Melissa was being controlling and insensitive. It's now been about 2 months since that blow-up, and the wedding is in 6 weeks. I haven't talked to Jake since. My mom tried to play peacemaker by suggesting I come for the ceremony, but not the reception, which makes no sense since I'd still need Luna regardless. Here's the kicker. Apparently, Jake and Melissa have told the venue staff to strictly enforce the no pet rule, even if someone claims it's a service animal. That's actually illegal, but it shows how far they're willing to go. A few days ago, Jake sent me a long message saying he was heartbroken that I'm skipping his wedding, that Melissa feels like I hate her, and that I've embarrassed them by making this about a dog. He also said that if I don't come, it'll irreparably damage our sibling relationship. I told him I wasn't trying to make anything about me, but I also refused to put myself in a situation where I could have a medical crisis because his fiancée doesn't want an animal in her photos. I said if he changes his mind, I'll be there, with Luna. Otherwise, I'll send a gift and my best wishes. He hasn't replied. My mom says I should be the bigger person and attend anyway, but my therapist and friends think I'm right to stand my ground. Now some family members are saying I'm weaponizing my disability and that I could just take a Xanax and deal for one day. I hate how dismissive people can be about mental health. Luna has been with me for 4 years. I can't just switch her off for the convenience of others. Sometimes I do wonder if I'm being stubborn. Jake's my brother, and I do love him. But the way he and Melissa have handled this, especially the public shade, the legal gray area, and the emotional manipulation, makes me feel like they don't respect me at all. I've been trying to imagine what would happen if I did go without Luna. The ceremony will have 200+ guests, an open bar, loud music, flashing lights, and cameras everywhere. Even thinking about it gives me anxiety. If I had a panic attack there, it would be humiliating and preventable. I don't want to ruin their day, but I also don't want to ruin mine just to keep up appearances. So now I'm sitting here, RSVP marked, not attending, gift purchased and wrapped, and my brother not speaking to me. My parents keep saying, "You'll regret missing it," but I can't help thinking that if they really valued me, they'd be telling Jake and Melissa to compromise, not me. It's weird, because I always thought weddings were supposed to be about celebrating love and unity. But somehow, this whole thing has turned into a line in the sand about who's worth accommodating. Part of me wonders if they'll ever look back and realize how unreasonable this was. Or if, years from now, I'll still be the selfish sister who chose a dog over family. But Luna's lying next to me as I write this, her head on my lap, and I can feel my heart rate steady just from her being here. And honestly, if that's what makes me selfish, then I guess that's who I am. AITA? AITA for refusing to attend my brother's family-only wedding after he uninvited my daughter because of her disability? So here's the backstory. I, 42F, have a younger brother, Nathan, 35M, who's always been the golden child in our family. My parents dote on him, excuse everything he does, and generally treat him like he's incapable of doing wrong. I've long accepted that dynamic. It used to bother me, but I built my own life and learned to keep a healthy distance. I have a 13-year-old daughter, Lily. She's bright, creative, funny, and happens to have cerebral palsy. She uses a wheelchair most of the time, though she can walk short distances with support. She's incredibly self-assured and doesn't let her condition define her, but it still shapes how she interacts with the world. Nathan got engaged last year to a woman named Emily, 33F. They've been together for 3 years, and while I was happy for them initially, I always felt like Emily looked down on me a little. She has this very curated aesthetic lifestyle and can be, well, judgmental. Still, I try to be polite and supportive. Lily loved her uncle and was genuinely excited to go to his wedding. About 2 months ago, invitations went out. I was relieved to see all our names on one envelope. Me, my husband, and Lily. And we even started looking into accessibility-friendly accommodations since the wedding was set to take place at a countryside vineyard about an hour away. Then, about 3 weeks ago, Nathan called me. His tone was weirdly formal, and I could tell immediately something was off. He said there had been some changes to the guest list due to capacity issues, and unfortunately, Lily wouldn't be able to come. I was stunned. I asked what he meant. Wasn't this supposed to be a family-only event? He said yes, but that certain logistical considerations made it difficult for them to accommodate special needs guests. I swear my blood ran cold. I asked him to clarify, and he said, in his words, "It's a small venue, and it's old. There's stairs everywhere. It wouldn't really be fair to Lily if she couldn't get around easily. Plus, we don't want her to feel uncomfortable when everyone's dancing and moving around." I told him that we'd already looked at the venue online and that there were ramps and accessible entrances. We'd even be fine bringing a portable one if needed. He brushed that off, saying, "It's not just that, it's about the vibe. Emily's really particular about how the day will look, and she doesn't want anything to distract from the aesthetic. You know how photographers can be. We don't want her feeling out of place in the pictures." I couldn't believe he said that. I told him that if his fiancée thought my daughter's presence would ruin her pictures, maybe he needed to rethink who he was marrying. He got defensive and said I was twisting his words. Then he tried to spin it as him protecting Lily, that he didn't want her to feel othered. I told him we'd already planned everything, and Lily was excited. He said, "Look, just come without her. It'll be a nice day for you and my husband. Mom and Dad will keep Lily, and we can all catch up another time." I told him no. If my daughter wasn't welcome, then I wasn't coming either. He got quiet for a second, then said something like, "You're really going to make this about you?" When I hung up, I was shaking. I told my parents, and surprise, surprise, they sided with him. My mom said, "You have to understand, weddings are stressful. Nathan and Emily are under pressure, and accessibility is complicated. Don't make things harder for them." My dad chimed in, saying, "Maybe next time they can plan something everyone can enjoy. You don't want to ruin your brother's big day over one misunderstanding." One misunderstanding. I tried explaining to them that this wasn't just about logistics. It was about my daughter being excluded because her disability didn't fit the aesthetic. My mom said I was being emotional and that no one meant any harm. Lily overheard part of the conversation. She asked if she did something wrong. My heart broke. I told her absolutely not, that she was perfect and kind, and that some people just didn't understand how to be inclusive. She nodded, but she's been quieter since then. She told me she doesn't want to go anywhere she's not wanted, which just gutted me. The wedding happened last weekend. We didn't go. My parents went, of course. I got a few texts from relatives saying they missed me, but that I should have let things go. My cousin sent me a few photos from the event. All this picture-perfect vineyard backdrop, soft pastel dresses, the kind of Pinterest-perfect day Emily always posts about. And I just stared at them thinking, Lily would have looked so beautiful there. Then, the day after the wedding, Nathan called. He was furious. He said my absence caused family drama, and that people kept asking why I wasn't there. He said I'd embarrassed him and made things weird by boycotting his wedding. I told him I wasn't boycotting. I was standing by my daughter. He said I was being performative and trying to make a statement. I said that if including my child in a family event is a statement, then maybe it's one that needed to be made. Now, my parents aren't speaking to me. My mom texted that she's disappointed I couldn't be the bigger person. My dad said I was teaching Lily to hold grudges. I don't feel guilty about missing the wedding, but I do feel crushed by how quickly my family turned on me. Lily keeps asking why Uncle Nathan hasn't called to apologize, and I honestly don't know what to say to her. Part of me wonders if I should have gone just to keep the peace, but every time I think about it, I picture Lily sitting at home, dressed up and waiting, asking why she wasn't invited. And I know in my bones that I made the right choice. Still, the guilt is there, the ache of a broken family, of missed moments, of realizing that maybe the people you grew up with aren't who you thought they were. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he uninvited my daughter because of her disability? AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she temporarily stayed with me for a year and left my apartment in ruins. I, 30F, live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment that I rent. I work full-time as a nurse, and my schedule is all over the place. About a year and a half ago, my younger sister Jess, 26F, called me crying because her boyfriend had broken up with her and kicked her out of his place. She had nowhere to go. Our parents live 3 states away, and she didn't want to move back home. She begged me to let her stay for a month or 2 until she got back on her feet. At the time, I felt bad for her. I'm the older sister. I have a decent job, and she sounded genuinely lost. I told her she could stay for 2 months tops. She agreed and promised she'd contribute to rent and utilities once she got a job. I made it clear this wasn't permanent. She showed up with 6 garbage bags full of clothes, random boxes, and her cat, which she never asked me about. The first week, it was fine. She was sad but trying. I even helped her redo her resume and drove her to a few interviews. But the second month came, and she still hadn't gotten a job. She said she needed a break to recover emotionally. Meanwhile, she spent her days watching TV, ordering takeout, and sleeping till noon. Her cat tore up my couch and peed on my bath mat twice. By the end of month 2, I told her she needed to start paying or make plans to move out. She cried again, said she was trying, and guilt-tripped me about how family should help family. Against my better judgment, I let it slide another month. Then another. Before I knew it, 6 months had passed, and she hadn't paid a cent toward rent or bills. Whenever I tried to talk to her about moving out, she'd turn it into a huge argument. She'd say she was doing her best and that I didn't understand how hard life was for her. She'd compare our lives and claim I had it easy because I had a stable career. It reached a point where I dreaded coming home. My once clean apartment was a mess, dirty dishes everywhere, laundry piled up, trash overflowing. Jess would invite friends over without asking, use my toiletries, and even borrow my clothes and makeup. Half of my food would mysteriously vanish, and when I confronted her, she'd laugh it off or say, "You make more money than me, chill out." After almost a year of this, I lost it. One morning, I came home from a night shift to find that she'd thrown a small party the night before. There were beer cans all over, someone had burned a cigarette hole in my couch, and her cat had knocked my plant shelf over. I woke her up and told her she had 1 month to move out. She screamed at me, saying I was heartless and selfish. She accused me of abandoning her when she needed me most. She also claimed she couldn't afford rent anywhere else. I pointed out that she hadn't even tried to find a job for months. When the deadline came, she still hadn't packed. I gave her 2 more weeks and then finally said enough. I helped her find a room for rent in a shared house through one of my coworkers. She reluctantly agreed, but not before making me feel like a monster. When she finally left, she slammed the door so hard it cracked part of the frame. The apartment looked awful once she was gone. The carpet was stained, my couch was ruined, and my landlord charged me for excessive damage. The final bill was $1,200, and Jess refused to pay a dime toward it. I blocked her for a few months just to get peace. Our parents called me and said I should have been more patient, that family isn't disposable. I reminded them that they didn't offer her a place either. They said they didn't have room, which is funny because they live in a 4-bedroom house. Fast forward to last month. Jess called me out of the blue, saying her roommates were toxic and she needed somewhere safe to stay again. She promised it would only be for a little while, and that she'd changed. I told her no immediately. I said she had burned that bridge and that I wasn't going through that again. She started crying, saying I was holding a grudge and that I should be more compassionate since I'm her sister. Our parents sided with her again, saying I was being cruel. My mom even said, "You don't know what it's like to struggle," which made me laugh because I've been working since I was 16. I told them they were free to let her stay with them if they were so concerned. They got quiet and said it wouldn't be good for the family dynamic. Now Jess is apparently couch hopping with friends, and she's been posting passive-aggressive stuff on social media about fake supportive family members. Some relatives reached out to tell me I should be the bigger person, but I can't shake the resentment I feel. It's not just about the money or the damage. It's that for a whole year, I lost my peace, my space, and my sanity trying to help someone who didn't care about how her behavior affected me. She never once apologized or took responsibility. The thought of letting her back into my life makes my stomach turn. But at the same time, there's that small, guilty voice in my head that says maybe I'm being too harsh. She's still my sister, and I know she's struggling. Part of me wonders if I should just forgive and move on, but another part of me is terrified she'll pull the same thing again, and I'll end up cleaning up her mess, literally and emotionally. So now my family is painting me as cold and heartless, while Jess plays the victim. And I'm left wondering if setting a firm boundary with her makes me a terrible person. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in? AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay with me after what she did at my wedding? So, this is a long story, but I want to be thorough because I feel like I'm losing my mind and maybe everyone else sees something I don't. I, 32F, got married this past June to my husband, Aaron, 35M. My older sister, Melissa, 37F, was my maid of honor. She and I have had a complicated relationship our whole lives. She's always been the golden child in the family, straight A student, varsity athlete, college scholarship, all of it. I was the quiet one, the artsy kid who was told to be more like your sister. Despite that, I've always tried to be supportive of her. Melissa has 2 kids, 8 and 5, with her husband Dan. They're generally good kids, but Melissa is one of those parents who thinks her children should be welcome everywhere and that everyone should adjust around them. Over the years, I've learned to bite my tongue, even when she brought her kids to adults-only dinners or expected me to babysit for free. Anyway, when Aaron and I started planning our wedding, we wanted a small event, about 80 people. We also decided on a no-kids rule, except for our niece and nephew, who were going to be the flower girl and ring bearer for the ceremony only. After that, they'd be picked up by a sitter Melissa hired so the adults could enjoy the reception. Melissa agreed to this early on. She said she understood and didn't make a fuss. Fast forward to the day of the wedding. Everything was going smoothly until the reception. About an hour into dinner, I noticed Melissa wasn't at her table. A few minutes later, I saw her walking in with her 2 kids, still in their little outfits, but now tired and cranky. I went over and quietly asked why they were still there. She said her sitter canceled last minute and she didn't want to bother me with it before the ceremony. I was frustrated, but said okay, as long as the kids stayed calm. Of course, that didn't happen. 10 minutes later, her youngest spilled grape juice all over the white tablecloth, and the older one started crying because he didn't like the food. Aaron's parents, who paid for most of the reception, were visibly annoyed. My husband whispered that we should ask Melissa to take them home, but I didn't want to cause a scene. Then came the real disaster. During our first dance, my nephew decided to join in. Melissa thought it was adorable and encouraged him. He ran onto the dance floor, tripped over my dress, and ripped part of the lace hem. I stumbled, but didn't fall. Everyone gasped, and I was mortified. Aaron helped me fix the dress enough to finish the dance, but I was so embarrassed. Melissa just laughed and said, "Oh, come on, it's not a big deal. He's just a kid." Later, when we were taking photos, she tried to make her kids pose in some of our couple shots for memories. I refused, and she got snippy, saying I was making everything about myself. I finally told her to stop and that I didn't want her or the kids in any more photos. She stormed off, dragging them behind her. After the wedding, Melissa texted me saying I owed her an apology for embarrassing her in front of everyone and acting like her children ruined my wedding. I didn't respond for a few days because I was so angry. Eventually, I told her I wasn't apologizing, that her kids did ruin several parts of the day and she should have handled the situation better. She told me I was selfish, that I hate kids, and that she'd remember how I treated her family. That was June. Now it's November, and she's reached out again, but not to apologize. She called last week saying she and Dan are having their house renovated and need a place to stay for 3 weeks. She wanted to know if they could crash at our house with the kids. I hesitated, but told her I didn't think that was a good idea. We live in a small 2-bedroom place, and Aaron works from home. I also still haven't gotten over what happened at the wedding. Melissa immediately got defensive, saying, "So you're still holding a grudge over one little accident?" I told her it wasn't just the accident. It was the disrespect, the entitlement, and how she never took responsibility. She exploded. She said I was punishing her children for something they didn't do on purpose, that family helps family, and that she couldn't believe I'd turned my own niece and nephew out on the street. I reminded her that she has other options. Our parents live nearby, as do her in-laws, but apparently she already asked them, and they said no because they're too busy. Now she's telling everyone that I'm petty and heartless. My parents think I should be the bigger person because that's what family does. My mom even offered to pay me to let them stay, which honestly made me feel worse, like she was trying to buy peace. Aaron is 100% on my side and said he won't let her move in under any circumstances. The guilt is killing me, though. I don't hate her kids. They're just a lot, and I don't want to spend 3 weeks living in chaos again. But Melissa keeps calling, and my parents have started to hint that I'm causing a family rift. For context, Melissa has always had a habit of doing this, overstepping and then acting like I'm the problem for not being more forgiving. When she borrowed my car 2 years ago and dented it, she said I shouldn't have a nice car if I can't handle accidents. When she forgot to pick me up from the airport once, she blamed traffic and said I was too demanding. It's like she never takes responsibility for anything. Aaron says this is my chance to finally draw a boundary. But I'm starting to doubt myself because everyone else seems to think I'm overreacting. My mom told me yesterday, "You'll understand when you have kids," which felt like another jab. I keep thinking about how humiliating that moment at the wedding was. Me standing there in my ripped dress, guests whispering, Melissa laughing it off like nothing happened. It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. And now I can't look at those photos without remembering how small she made me feel. Still, the idea of refusing my sister and her kids a place to stay makes me feel like some kind of villain. Part of me wants to just cave and say yes to keep the peace, but another part of me knows if I do, she'll learn nothing and it'll just happen again. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her kids stay with me after what happened at my wedding. AITA for refusing to give up my late fiancé's dog to his parents after his death. My fiancé, Matt, passed away unexpectedly 6 months ago. We had been together for 5 years, engaged for 1, and we were supposed to get married next spring. Losing him was like having the floor ripped out from under me. Everything I thought I understood about life just stopped making sense. Matt had a golden retriever named Cooper. He adopted Cooper as a puppy before we met, but once we moved in together 3 years ago, Cooper became our dog. I was the one who fed him breakfast, took him on morning walks before work, handled vet visits, and bathed him when he inevitably rolled in something disgusting. Matt adored Cooper, but I was the one who handled most of the day-to-day care. Cooper followed me everywhere. When Matt died, Cooper was the only living thing that still felt like a connection to him. The first week after the funeral, I slept with Cooper curled up against me because I couldn't bear the silence of the apartment. He would whine sometimes in the middle of the night, looking for Matt, and I'd hold him until we both fell asleep. Matt's parents live about 2 hours away. They were devastated, of course. His mom and I had always gotten along, though she could be a bit overbearing. His dad was quieter but kind. A few weeks after the funeral, they asked if they could visit to pick up some of Matt's belongings. I said of course. When they arrived, they also mentioned wanting to take Cooper for a while, saying they missed having him around. I agreed at first because I understood. They had lost their son. They wanted a piece of him, too. They had Cooper for a few weeks, but during that time I visited twice. Each time, Cooper seemed happy enough, but he'd cling to me when I left. Eventually, I asked for him back, and they seemed disappointed but agreed. After that, things got awkward. Matt's mom started calling me weekly to ask if they could borrow Cooper again for holidays, birthdays, or just a few days. Sometimes I agreed, but other times I said no because Cooper had become anxious from the back and forth. The vet even mentioned that the stress might be affecting him. Then, about 2 months ago, I got a certified letter from Matt's parents' attorney. They were suing me for ownership of Cooper. The letter said that since Matt was Cooper's legal owner and we weren't married, Cooper should belong to Matt's next of kin, his parents. I was stunned. I tried calling them, but they didn't answer. Eventually, Matt's mom texted me saying, "We're doing what's right." Matt would want Cooper with his family. I ended up hiring a lawyer because I wasn't just going to roll over. My lawyer pointed out that I had years of vet records listing me as a co-owner and caretaker, and most of the expenses came from my account. In every practical sense, Cooper was as much mine as he was Matt's. The legal battle lasted almost 3 months. It was exhausting, emotionally and financially. During that time, I got messages from some of Matt's friends saying they thought I should just give the dog back because his parents were grieving and it was cruel to fight over something that reminded them of him. One even said, "You can get another dog someday, but they can't get another son." That gutted me. When the judge finally made a decision, he ruled in my favor. He said the evidence showed joint ownership and that I had been Cooper's primary caretaker for years. He emphasized that Cooper's best interest was stability, and that meant staying with me. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. Matt's parents were furious. His mom showed up at my apartment 2 weeks later, pounding on the door. She screamed at me through the door that I was selfish and cruel, that I had stolen her son's memory. She said I was keeping Cooper only to hurt them. I didn't open the door, but I could hear her crying in the hallway before she left. Since then, she's posted about me on Facebook, calling me a heartless gold digger and saying I only fought for Cooper to keep control over Matt's things. Some of our mutual friends took her side. One even told me I should do the decent thing and give Cooper to the family. Another friend who lost her husband said she could understand both sides, but that she wouldn't have been able to live with the guilt of denying grieving parents something that gave them comfort. But here's the thing. Cooper isn't just a reminder of Matt to me. He's my companion. He's the one constant in the sea of grief. When I wake up in the morning, he nudges my hand with his nose until I get out of bed. When I cry, he lays his head in my lap. He's part of what's keeping me sane. The thought of giving him away feels like losing Matt all over again. I try to compromise once more. I told his parents they could visit Cooper at a neutral park with me present, maybe once a month. I thought that was fair. They refused. They said they wouldn't settle for scraps of their son's life. Now, some of my friends are saying I'm being heartless, that maybe I should have just let the parents have Cooper to honor Matt's memory. My own parents think I did the right thing. They said Matt's parents were trying to control the narrative of their grief by taking away the only piece of him I still have. I keep replaying it in my head, wondering if I could have handled it differently. Maybe I should have agreed to shared custody or something, even though that sounds ridiculous when talking about a dog. But then I remember how Cooper panicked when he thought I was leaving for good, and I can't justify putting him through that again. Still, part of me feels guilty. They lost their son. Maybe they deserve something, some comfort. But at the same time, didn't I lose him too? Don't I deserve to keep what's left of our life together? It's been 6 months since the ruling, and I still get the occasional message from one of Matt's relatives saying I should be ashamed. I usually ignore them, but sometimes I catch myself wondering if maybe I really am being selfish. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give up my late fiancé's dog to his parents, even though they're grieving too. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my house after she passed away. My sister, Lila, was my best friend. We were 2 years apart, and even though life took us in different directions, we always had each other's backs. She was engaged to a guy named Aaron for 3 years, and honestly, I always thought they made sense. They had a comfortable, easy relationship, not overly romantic but steady. I thought they'd be together forever. Lila got sick last year. It started as something small, fatigue, a cough, but then came the diagnosis that changed everything. Cancer. Aggressive, late stage, and by the time they found it, there wasn't much they could do. I was with her through all of it. Hospital visits, appointments, late-night breakdowns. Aaron was there too, but in a different way. He wasn't cruel or absent, just detached. He'd come to the hospital, sit quietly, hold her hand, then go home early because he couldn't watch her like that. I try to give him grace. Everyone grieves differently. When Lila passed, I was destroyed. I handled her funeral, sorted through her things, made the calls. Aaron was distant through it all, barely speaking, except to ask about her ring and some of her personal items. I gave him what was his, and he thanked me with a kind of emptiness that felt hollow. I assumed that would be it. We'd each move on in our own way. But about a month after the funeral, he called me out of nowhere. He said his lease was up, and he couldn't afford to renew it. He'd been struggling with rent even before Lila got sick, and now, with funeral costs and time off work, he was behind on everything. He said Lila would want him to be taken care of, and that she'd want me to help him. Then he asked if he could move in with me temporarily. For context, I live in the house my parents left me after they passed. It's a small 3-bedroom. Lila stayed here with me for a few months when she was sick. Her old room still looks like she left it. I couldn't bring myself to change anything. When Aaron asked, I didn't answer right away. I told him I needed time to think. But inside, something about it didn't sit right. Maybe it was how he phrased it, like it was a given that I'd say yes. Like I owed it to her memory to take him in. After a week, he called again. This time, more insistent. He said he was getting evicted soon, that he'd only stay for a few months until he got back on his feet. When I asked why he couldn't stay with his family or friends, he said his relationship with them was complicated and that I was the only person left who really understood Lila. I finally told him no. I said it as gently as I could, that I was still grieving, that it would be too painful to live with someone who reminded me of her every day. I told him I was sorry, but I couldn't do it. He went silent for a moment and then said, "Wow, so much for family." That hit me hard. He wasn't family, not legally. But Lila loved him, and in her memory, I tried to be kind. Still, something about that guilt trip made me angry. I told him I wasn't his safety net and that he needed to find another solution. He hung up on me. I thought that was the end of it. Until a few days later, I got a call from my aunt, Lila's godmother, saying Aaron had reached out to her and told her I'd kicked him out of Lila's home. She asked how I could do something so heartless. I tried to explain that it wasn't his home, it was mine, and he'd never lived here. She said Lila would be ashamed of me. That stung. I didn't argue with her, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Would Lila have wanted me to help him? Maybe. She was endlessly compassionate, sometimes to her own detriment. But she also told me once, during a late-night hospital talk, that she worried about Aaron being too dependent on her. She said he didn't handle stress well, and she was scared of what would happen if she wasn't there to keep him grounded. I don't think she wanted to take that on. Since then, things have gotten worse. Aaron's been messaging me nonstop, long, emotional text about how lonely he is, how Lila would never forgive me for abandoning him. He even showed up at my house once, saying he just wanted to see her room. I refused to let him in. I stood on the porch and told him to leave. He called me cold and said I'd changed. I finally blocked his number after that. I felt horrible, but also relieved. Then I got another call, this time from a mutual friend of theirs. She said Aaron was telling people I'd kicked him out of Lila's house, and that I'd kept all of Lila's things from him. People online, we're all in a local Facebook group, started commenting under memorial posts, saying things like some people only care about the inheritance. It's been months now, and the tension hasn't really faded. My aunt won't speak to me. That friend group has basically iced me out. I've been second-guessing everything. Maybe I should have helped him for a while. Maybe I should have let him stay in Lila's room, just until he found somewhere else. But every time I walk past her door, I still can't bring myself to open it. The thought of him in there, sleeping in her bed, surrounded by her things, it makes my stomach twist. I keep replaying our last conversation before she passed. She told me, "Promise me you'll take care of yourself. Don't let anyone guilt you into living my life for me." At the time, I thought she meant emotionally. Now I'm starting to think maybe she knew exactly what was coming. Still, part of me wonders if I failed her memory. If helping him would have been the right thing, not for him, but for her. So, Reddit-style world, I have to ask, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my house after she died? AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé wear my late mother's wedding dress, even though I promised her she could years ago? This has turned into a full-blown family meltdown, and I honestly don't know if I've completely lost perspective. For background, I, 28F, lost my mom when I was 20. She died very suddenly, and it shattered me. My mom was the glue of our family. Creative, sentimental, a bit dramatic, but full of love. When she passed, my dad kept most of her things boxed up because it was too painful to deal with. About 2 years later, he gave me her wedding dress and said, "You're the one who'll know what to do with this someday." The dress is stunning, by the way. Hand-sewn lace, vintage 80s but in a timeless way. My mom had customized it herself, which makes it even more personal. When I got it, I had it professionally cleaned and stored properly. I figured one day, if I got married, I might wear it or at least repurpose part of it. Fast forward to when my older brother, Nate, 31M, started dating this woman named Emily, 29F. At first, I liked her. She was warm, funny, and very into family connections. About 3 years ago, at a family dinner, the topic of weddings came up. Emily jokingly said something like, "If Nate ever proposes, I hope I get to wear your mom's famous dress." I laughed and said something along the lines of, "Well, if that ever happens, we can talk about it." She lit up and said, "Really? You'd let me?" And I said, "Sure, I guess. That could be nice." It wasn't a serious conversation, more lighthearted banter, but I admit I did say yes in the moment. Fast forward again, Nate proposes last year. Everyone's over the moon, except things between Emily and me have become tense. She started being very controlling about family plans, criticized me for not being more present, and once even told me I use grief as a personality trait. That one really stung. After that, I started keeping my distance. A few months ago, she texted me saying, "So, when can I come try on mom's dress?" Just reading that made my stomach twist. I told her I wasn't comfortable with her wearing it anymore. She replied with a long message about how I promised it years ago that would be a beautiful way to honor my mom, and that I was being selfish and spiteful because I never liked her. I told her my feelings had changed, that I realized the dress was one of the few tangible pieces of my mother I had left, and I wasn't ready to hand it over, especially to someone who had said some really hurtful things to me. She immediately called Nate, who called me and started yelling, saying I was breaking a promise and ruining Emily's dream wedding. I tried explaining calmly, but he kept saying it wasn't about me. It was about keeping mom's memory alive. I told him that mom's memory wasn't a prop for their wedding photos. That's when things blew up. Emily then went to my dad, crying. Dad called me, clearly uncomfortable, and said he thought maybe I should consider it for the sake of family peace. But even he admitted he understood my feelings. My stepmom, on the other hand, said I was being territorial and that letting go of the past is healthy. This spiraled even more when Emily posted on Facebook about people hoarding grief and gatekeeping love. It was vague, but everyone knew what she meant. I was mortified. I texted her to take it down. She left me on read. At that point, I decided to get ahead of the drama and sent a group message to Nate, Emily, and my dad. I wrote that the dress was not available, that I wouldn't discuss it further, and that if Emily mentioned it again, I'd consider that harassment. I tried to sound firm, but respectful. Nate responded with, "Wow, guess we know where we stand," and has barely spoken to me since. The wedding is in 2 months, and apparently Emily has found another dress, but she's still telling people I went back on a promise out of jealousy. I've been getting side texts from cousins saying I could have just let her borrow it for one day. The truth is, I don't even plan to wear the dress myself now. It's just sacred to me. It smells faintly like my mom's perfume. When I unzip the bag and see the tiny hand stitches, I feel like she's right there. The idea of someone else walking down the aisle in it, especially someone who mocked my grief, feels unbearable. Still, I keep replaying that stupid conversation from years ago. I did say yes. I didn't think it mattered then, but now it's like everyone is holding me to it as a promise. Emily says I made her build her whole vision around it. She's claiming that I've traumatized her by taking it away. That seems extreme, but it's gotten in my head. Even my dad said I should maybe lend it symbolically, like let Emily wear it for pictures and then immediately take it back. But to me, that's still crossing a line. Once she wears it, it's not mine in the same way anymore. It becomes part of her story, and it's not hers to have. Part of me wonders if grief has made me selfish. Maybe I do cling to things too tightly. Maybe this dress is just fabric, and I'm turning it into something bigger than it is. But another part of me feels like no one understands how personal this is. Mom and I had this ritual when I was a kid. Every time we went through something big, she'd say, "Keep something small from it. It'll help you remember who you were." This dress feels like that something small for her whole life. I can't hand that over to someone who doesn't even respect what it means to me. The last straw was when I heard Emily told her bridesmaids that I'm bitter because no one wants to marry me. I cried for hours after that. I'm not jealous, just tired and heartbroken that something so meaningful has turned into a family feud. Now Nate and I barely talk. Dad keeps trying to mediate. Emily still hasn't apologized. I'm just sitting here wondering if maybe I'm the unreasonable one, if I should have just kept my mouth shut years ago and avoided this whole mess. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée wear my late mother's wedding dress, even though I once said she could. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids after she embarrassed my fiancé at our engagement dinner. So for context, I, 29M, am recently engaged to my fiancé, Lauren, 28F. We've been together for almost 4 years, and she's honestly the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's warm, kind, ambitious, and she gets along with almost everyone, except my older sister, Claire, 34F. Claire has always been difficult. She's not evil or anything, but she has that my way or the highway personality. She's the kind of person who thinks she's brutally honest when in reality, she's just rude. My parents have always kind of enabled it because that's just how she is. She's married and has 2 kids, 6M and 4F, and she constantly expects everyone to drop what they're doing to help her out because family helps family. Now, Lauren and I planned an engagement dinner at a nice restaurant about a month ago. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a private room with family and a few close friends. We were paying for everything ourselves. Lauren even made little personalized place cards and picked a menu everyone could enjoy. Claire showed up late, of course, with both kids in tow, even though the invite specifically said it was an adults-only dinner. When I gently mentioned that, she rolled her eyes and said she couldn't find a sitter, and you know how hard it is for moms. I didn't want a scene, so I told the restaurant staff to bring 2 extra chairs. Things went downhill from there. The kids were restless and loud, which wasn't their fault, but Claire didn't even try to keep them calm. One of them spilled a glass of water all over the table, soaking the decorations Lauren had made. Claire just laughed and said, "Well, you'll have to get used to kids making messes if you ever plan to be a real family." Lauren forced a smile, but I could tell she was upset. Later, when Lauren was talking to my mom about wedding plans, Claire interrupted and started going on about how Lauren was one of those Pinterest brides who care more about aesthetic than meaning. She even mocked Lauren's career, she's an interior designer, by saying, "Oh, so you pick throw pillows for a living, that's cute." I told Claire to knock it off, but she acted like I was overreacting. At the end of the night, Lauren went to the restroom, and Claire leaned over to me and said, "You know, it's not too late to find someone a little less high maintenance." I saw red. I told her that was completely inappropriate and that she owed Lauren an apology. She scoffed and said I was whipped. When Lauren came back, I told her we were leaving. We said quick goodbyes, paid the bill, and left early. The next morning, I texted Claire saying she needed to apologize or she'd not be welcome at our wedding. She responded with a long message about how I was prioritizing a woman I've known for 5 minutes over my own blood, and that she was just joking and Lauren needs to grow thicker skin. I didn't respond. Fast forward 2 weeks. Claire called me asking if I could watch her kids that weekend because she and her husband had a wedding to attend. I told her no. She acted surprised and asked why not since Lauren doesn't work weekends anyway. I said, "Because I don't want to, and you haven't apologized for what happened." She went off on me, saying I was punishing her children for something that wasn't their fault. I told her she had plenty of other babysitters she uses, and she said, "Yeah, but you're family. You're supposed to help." I said, "Family doesn't get to treat my fiancé like garbage and then expect free childcare." She hung up on me. That night, my mom called, saying Claire was crying because she felt cut off from me and that the kids missed their uncle. My mom said I should just be the bigger person and help out for the kids' sake. I told her I loved my niece and nephew, but that I wasn't doing Claire any favors until she took responsibility for what she said. Mom said I was letting Lauren drive a wedge in the family, which hurt because Lauren has done nothing but try to be kind to them. Since then, I've been getting passive-aggressive texts from Claire. Things like, "Hope you're happy. The kids are asking why Uncle Jake doesn't want to see them." It makes me feel awful, but every time I consider reaching out, I remember the look on Lauren's face at that dinner. Lauren says she supports whatever I decide, but admits she doesn't want to be around Claire again unless she apologizes. I think that's totally fair. But my mom and even a few cousins are saying I'm being petty and holding a grudge over some jokes. For what it's worth, Claire still hasn't apologized. Not even a fake one. She's been posting vague Facebook statuses about brothers who forget who was there for them when no one else was, and fake women who turn men against their family. It's exhausting. Part of me wonders if I should just cave and watch the kids once just to keep the peace. But another part of me feels like that's exactly what Claire expects. That she can behave however she wants because eventually someone will give in. I don't want to punish my niece and nephew, but I also don't want to send a message that my sister can disrespect my partner without consequence. Lauren's my future wife. She's my family now, too. So, Reddit-style judgment time. AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids until she apologizes to my fiancé for humiliating her at our engagement dinner. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's second wedding because she's marrying my ex-fiancé. So I, 29F, have a younger sister, Chloe, 26F, who has always been the golden child in our family. I was the quiet, academic one growing up, and she was the bubbly, social butterfly. Our parents doted on her and let her get away with everything. I didn't really mind. I figured that as long as I focused on school and my own life, we could both be happy. 4 years ago, I was engaged to a man named Ryan, 31M. We'd been together for 5 years, and I truly thought he was my soulmate. We met in grad school, bonded over our shared love of travel and old movies, and he proposed to me on a trip to Scotland. It was magical. My family loved him, especially Chloe. She used to joke that if we ever broke up, she'd totally steal him. I always laughed it off because I thought it was harmless teasing. About 6 months before the wedding, Ryan started getting distant. I chalked it up to stress from work and wedding planning. One night, I borrowed his laptop to print some documents, and a text popped up from C. It said, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." My stomach dropped. At first, I thought it might have been one of his co-workers. He worked with a few people whose names started with C, but then I noticed the heart emoji at the end. When I confronted him, he tried to deny it at first, then broke down and admitted that he'd been sleeping with Chloe for a few months. He claimed it just happened, that they had unresolved feelings, and that he didn't want to hurt me. I remember standing there in complete disbelief. My own sister, my fiancé. I cut them both off immediately. The wedding was canceled, and I moved out of the apartment we shared. Chloe didn't even try to contact me at first, and our parents told me to be the bigger person because people make mistakes. I refused. I spent the next 2 years focusing on myself, my career, and eventually met someone new, Ben, 33M. He's kind, stable, and the exact opposite of Ryan. Then about 6 months ago, I got a call from my mom. She told me that Chloe and Ryan were getting married and that they wanted me to attend. I literally laughed. I told her there was absolutely no way I was going to watch my sister marry the man who cheated on me with her. My mom said she understood it was awkward, but insisted that families should come together for special occasions. My dad agreed with her, saying, "It's been years, you've moved on, it's time to let go." I said no again and hung up. A week later, I got a long message from Chloe. She said she's deeply sorry for what happened, that she never meant to fall in love with him, but it was meant to be. She claims she's tried to reach out in the past, but I ignored her, which is true. I blocked her. She said she really wants her big sister at her wedding and that it would mean a lot to heal the family wounds. She even mentioned wanting me to be her maid of honor because no one knows her better. I almost threw my phone at the wall when I read that. I didn't respond, but then my mom texted me saying that Chloe had cried all night and that my refusal to come was cruel. She said, "You don't have to give a speech or anything. Just show up for an hour to show you've forgiven her." I told her forgiveness doesn't require attendance. My dad later called me saying he'd already told the extended family I'd be there and that I'd embarrass them if I didn't show up. The pressure kept coming. My aunt called to say she understood my pain, but that life is short. My cousin said I'd win more if I showed up looking amazing and unbothered. Even Ben, my boyfriend, suggested that maybe it would give you closure. I started second-guessing myself. Was I being petty? Would going actually help me move on fully? But every time I imagined standing there watching them say their vows, my chest tightened. That was supposed to be my moment. My wedding. My dress. My future. Last weekend, my mom invited me to a family dinner to talk things through. When I arrived, it turned out to be a setup. Chloe and Ryan were there. I almost walked right back out. My mom begged me to stay. Chloe started crying immediately, saying she misses her sister and hates how things turned out. Ryan had the audacity to say he still cares about me as a person and hopes I can forgive them. I told them forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, and it sure as hell doesn't mean celebrating their relationship. Chloe accused me of living in the past and said I was punishing her for being happy. That's when I lost it. I told her she'd built her happiness on the ruins of mine, and if she was so sure of her choices, she didn't need my approval. Then I left. Now, my parents have officially uninvited me from Thanksgiving because they don't want drama before the wedding. My mom said, "You've had your chance to make peace, and you chose bitterness." Ben says I should ignore them and spend the holidays with him and his family. But I feel this hollow ache in my chest. I keep wondering if I overreacted, if I should have just swallowed my pride for one day. Chloe sent me one last message a few days ago. She said she's sad I still can't be happy for her, that she's letting go of the hope that we'll ever be close again. I didn't reply. It's been over 3 years since the betrayal, and logically I know I owe them nothing. But emotionally, I'm still angry, and part of me feels guilty for that. Everyone keeps saying I should move on, but they don't understand that I did move on. I just don't want to pretend what happened didn't matter. So, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding, even though it's been years and everyone says I should forgive her? AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after my family pressured me to pay for part of it? So, this is going to be long, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I, 29F, come from a large family that has always had this weird, we all chip in for celebrations culture. Growing up, it was fine when I was a kid because my parents handled everything, but now that I'm an adult with my own life, it has started to feel extremely burdensome. I have a decent job, but I also live in a city with a very high cost of living, and I save aggressively for future plans, including buying a home. My cousin, let's call her Emily, 27F, has been engaged for about a year. Her fiancé is great, but the problem started when my aunts and uncles decided that everyone in the family should contribute financially to the wedding, not just emotionally or with their time. At first, it was vague. It would be nice if everyone pitched in type of statements, but it became clear over time that my parents expected me to pay a substantial portion. The amount they suggested was $2,000. Now, I know that weddings can be expensive, and I've attended weddings where people covered costs in creative ways. But this is a situation where my parents' wording made it sound like refusal would be unacceptable. And it's not like Emily asked me herself for the money. This is the extended family putting pressure on me, not the bride. I explained to my parents that I simply cannot afford to pay $2,000 without impacting my savings goals. I reminded them that I'm attending the wedding. I'm excited for Emily, and I've already booked a hotel room and bought a gift. I even offered to help in other ways, like helping with wedding planning tasks or contributing smaller amounts in a meaningful way, like decorations or a dinner rehearsal. But my parents insisted that this wasn't enough, that my contribution was expected in full. I tried to negotiate. I suggested a smaller amount, maybe $500, or offered to do a particular service like organizing the seating chart or helping with the bachelor/bachelorette events. They pushed back, saying that partial contributions would look bad in front of the rest of the family. I also tried talking directly to Emily, thinking maybe she would clarify that my full payment wasn't necessary. She seemed uncomfortable but didn't say much, only that she appreciated anything I could do. I interpreted that as a silent green light to stand my ground, but my parents kept escalating. Over the past month, the pressure has become intense. Family members are sending me passive-aggressive messages like, "We hope you can support Emily as much as she supported you in your last big event, and it wouldn't feel right if everyone else contributes and you don't." I've tried ignoring them, but my parents called me last week, and it turned into a full-blown argument. My dad said, "Family comes first, and this is about showing loyalty. If you can't contribute, maybe you shouldn't come." My mom was crying and accusing me of being selfish, and I had to hang up because it was turning into a shouting match. After this, I honestly considered skipping the wedding to avoid the stress, but I didn't want to hurt Emily. Then I had an idea. I could attend the wedding but refuse to pay anything beyond my gift and my travel/hotel expenses. I messaged my parents, explaining that I will be there to celebrate Emily and will help in ways I can, but I cannot contribute the requested $2,000. They were livid. They accused me of being selfish and ungrateful and said I was putting my own desires above family expectations. I decided to stick to my boundaries. I attended the wedding this past weekend, and things were tense from the start. I avoided most family interactions during the pre-wedding events because people were giving me icy stares and whispering in corners. Emily hugged me and thanked me for coming, but she clearly felt awkward, which made me sad because I genuinely wanted to celebrate her. During the reception, some relatives made pointed remarks in front of others about some people not doing their part and how it disappointed everyone, and it was hard not to respond. A few days later, my parents sent me a long text about how I've shamed the family and set a terrible example for cousins and younger relatives. My siblings have since reached out, saying they are embarrassed about the whole situation and suggesting I make it right with my parents. I feel caught in the middle because I honestly did everything I could to participate meaningfully without overextending myself financially. I'm proud that I didn't cave, but I also hate that Emily's wedding was overshadowed by this tension. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for part of my cousin's wedding despite family pressure, while still attending and contributing in other ways. The family says I am, but I feel like I'm just trying to set healthy boundaries. The situation left me questioning how far family expectations should go, especially when they clash with personal financial responsibility. I want to maintain relationships, but I also can't allow myself to be coerced into spending money that would compromise my financial security. This whole ordeal has made me feel exhausted, and I'm still unsure if I handled it the right way. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after she broke my trust. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to break it down clearly. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who has always been a bit impulsive and a little selfish, but overall we've had a decent relationship. Recently, things between us have started to deteriorate, and I'm not sure if I'm the jerk in this situation or if I'm justified. For context, Emily has been dating her fiancé, Mike, 27M, for about 3 years. When they first started dating, I didn't know him very well, but I tried to be welcoming and give him the benefit of the doubt. Over time, though, I started noticing some red flags. Mike is controlling in subtle ways, like insisting on making all the plans, questioning Emily about her friendships, and sometimes being dismissive of my opinions when we all hang out. I didn't want to interfere in their relationship too much because it's not my place, but I also wanted to protect Emily from being manipulated. Fast forward to last month. Emily called me in tears because she and Mike had a huge argument. Apparently, Mike had gone through her phone and accused her of talking to other men. She said she was done with the argument, but she didn't want to leave him entirely because she still loves him. She asked if she could come stay with me for a few days to cool off and think things through. I agreed, thinking that a few days away from Mike might help her reset and see things more clearly. She showed up at my apartment that evening, visibly upset. I gave her space, let her sleep, and we had a long conversation the next day. I tried to gently point out some of the controlling behaviors I had noticed, but I made sure to frame it as concern, not judgment. She seemed receptive at first, and even admitted that some of the things I noticed were true. I thought we were finally on the same page. A few days later, Emily told me that Mike wanted to come see her at my place to talk things out. I immediately said no. I explained that Mike had already demonstrated manipulative behavior, and I didn't feel comfortable having him in my home while Emily was in a vulnerable state. She got upset, saying that I was controlling her life and turning her against Mike, which honestly shocked me. I reminded her that she asked to stay with me for her own safety and clarity, and part of that meant keeping space between her and someone who was emotionally manipulative. She stormed out that evening, saying she was going back to Mike and that I was being unfair. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my mom. Apparently, Emily had told her and my dad that I had banned Mike from my house because I didn't like him and that I was trying to ruin her relationship. My parents were upset, saying that I should have compromised and allowed him over because he's family too now. I tried to explain that this wasn't about personal dislike. It was about protecting Emily's well-being while she was in a fragile emotional state, but they weren't convinced. After that, Emily stopped talking to me altogether, which hurt a lot because we were close. I didn't try to force communication because I wanted to respect her boundaries, but I also felt conflicted because I thought I was doing the right thing. A couple of days ago, I got a text from Mike himself saying that my behavior was disrespectful and unacceptable and that I needed to apologize for interfering. Emily hasn't said anything directly, but I have a feeling she's siding with him, or at least letting him influence her opinion. I've talked to a few friends about this, and the opinions are split. Some say I overstepped and should have let Mike come over to show that I'm not against their relationship. Others say I was completely justified because Emily was emotionally vulnerable and Mike had already shown controlling behavior. I'm torn. On one hand, I feel like I was protecting my sister from someone who clearly has some toxic tendencies, especially when she's upset. On the other hand, I've now caused a rift in my family and might be the reason she's upset with me. I'm trying to balance being a supportive sister with not letting someone potentially harmful into my personal space, but I feel like everyone thinks I'm the villain here. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house while she was in a fragile emotional state. Character count, 6,302 word count. 1,197 if you want. I can write a second, slightly longer version pushing closer to 7,000 characters with more drama, tension, and dialogue, which often helps these posts feel like viral Reddit stories. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she publicly shamed me for my choice of career. I, 28F, have always had a slightly unconventional career path. I work as a freelance digital illustrator and content creator. I love my work, it's creative and flexible, and it allows me to live comfortably without a traditional 9 to 5. My sister, Emily, 30F, is the complete opposite. She works in finance, is very career-driven, and has a very traditional view on money, jobs, and life choices. Our relationship has always been a little tense because of this. She likes to subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, criticize my career choices. She once asked if I was serious about life because I didn't have a steady paycheck, and another time she told me I should consider getting a real job when I turned down a corporate illustration contract in favor of working on a personal project that would grow my social media presence. I usually let these comments slide, but over the years, it's built up resentment. Emily got engaged 6 months ago, and almost immediately, the conversations shifted to her wedding. From the very beginning, she had a very clear vision. She wanted a high-end, luxurious wedding with over 200 guests. She also made it known that she expected her siblings to help pay for parts of it. My parents, who were supportive of both of us, offered to contribute, but Emily said they wouldn't cover enough and that it would be unfair to expect her to shoulder the cost alone. Here's where things got complicated. During the initial planning, Emily asked if I could contribute to the wedding costs. I explained my situation. I don't have a steady salary. My income fluctuates month to month, and I am paying off some student loans. I told her I could contribute a modest amount, but it wouldn't be anywhere near what she was expecting. She immediately got upset, saying that my modest amount would make her wedding look cheap and that it was unfair for me not to match what she believed was the proper contribution. I reminded her that I had offered support in other ways. I offered to design the invitations, create some digital art for the wedding, and even help with the decor. She dismissed all of it, saying artwork doesn't pay the bills. A few weeks later, My parents suggested that I might be able to cover at least half of my expected contribution if I cut back on my personal expenses. I explained that I already budget carefully and that my finances simply don't allow me to cover tens of thousands of dollars. Emily responded in a group text with my parents included, writing, "I don't understand why my name thinks she can act like she's supporting me when she's not even willing to do the bare minimum financially. It's like she's holding us back from having the wedding we deserve." I was shocked. I had tried to contribute in ways that didn't involve cash, and now she was publicly shaming me to our parents. I sent a private message to her, asking why she had sent that text and telling her that I felt humiliated. Her reply was essentially, "This isn't about feelings, it's about reality. Your creative career isn't real work, and you need to act like a responsible adult." I didn't respond after that because, honestly, I was furious and felt deeply hurt. The situation escalated further when she started sending me passive-aggressive messages about things like the dress I planned to wear as her sister. She commented that maybe I should pick something cheaper since I'm not contributing enough, and even hinted that I shouldn't bring a plus one if I couldn't financially support her wedding. My parents tried to mediate, asking me to just pay more so we can all avoid tension, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. At this point, it felt like she was trying to punish me for having a career that she doesn't respect. Eventually, I sent Emily a message stating that I would not be contributing financially beyond a small token amount that I could afford, and that I would still happily contribute in ways that aligned with my skills. I also said that if she wanted to continue shaming me for my career or my financial limitations, I would step back from active participation in the wedding entirely. Emily's response was a mix of disbelief and rage. She accused me of being selfish, immature, and destructive to family unity. She even went as far as saying that I was choosing my career over your happiness, which I found completely absurd. Since then, the tension has been unbearable. Our parents have been walking on eggshells, trying to keep the peace, but Emily has gone on about it with friends and other family members, painting me as a villain who is ruining her dream wedding. I did decide to still attend the wedding, but I'm not paying for anything beyond my ticket and basic outfit, and I'm keeping my distance during the planning. I feel sad and angry that a family event has become a battlefield because of money and career choices, and I wonder if I'm being unreasonable. I've tried to be fair, I've tried to help in ways that are meaningful, and I've been transparent about my finances. I feel like she's asking for the impossible while punishing me for not conforming to her idea of what success should look like. But now I'm hearing from friends and distant family members that maybe I should just pay up to avoid drama, and it's making me question myself. AITA for refusing to pay the bulk of my sister's wedding after she publicly shamed me for my career and my financial situation. Character count, 6,523 if you want. I can also draft a second version with even more drama and intricate family dynamics, the kind that often goes viral on Reddit. That version could hit closer to 7,000 characters while including multiple layers of conflict. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to give my cousin's kids a huge gift for their graduation when everyone else is giving smaller, meaningful gifts. So this is going to be long because of a lot of context, but I'll try to keep it coherent. I, 34 am, have always been the kind of person who likes to show love and support through gifts, but I also value practicality. I recently found myself in a situation where my choices apparently caused a massive family feud. I have a cousin, let's call her Jessica, 32F, and she has 3 kids, Liam, 18M, Emma, 16F, and Noah, 14M. Jessica and I were close growing up, but as adults, we've drifted a bit. Still, we have family events together, and we check in occasionally. Jessica's kids have always been kind of spoiled. Not maliciously, but they're used to big gestures from relatives. They're all smart and hardworking, don't get me wrong, but their parents are the type to say yes to almost everything, and some extended family members have definitely reinforced this behavior. Anyway, the story starts with Liam's graduation from high school. For his graduation party, most of the family was planning small, thoughtful gifts. Something personal, maybe a book, a piece of tech he had mentioned wanting, or a gift card at his favorite store. My brother and sister-in-law got him a high-quality watch. My aunt got him a set of books he'd been talking about. My parents had a gift card and wrote a heartfelt letter. All perfectly normal and reasonable gifts. I, on the other hand, had already told Jessica and her kids that I didn't want to spend more than $100 on a single gift. I'm in a decent financial position, but I also have other obligations. Mortgage, student loans, helping my younger siblings with school sometimes, etc. I had planned to get Liam something meaningful within that range, and maybe something similar for Emma and Noah's future milestones. The day before the party, Jessica casually mentioned over a group text that she thought it would be nice if I got something big for Liam because he's your cousin and you have the means. She used words like generous and you wouldn't want him to feel less special. I responded politely, saying I had a thoughtful gift already and that I preferred to keep it within the budget I'd set. I didn't argue or lecture. I just stated my limits. Fast forward to the party. Everyone was giving their gifts, and I stuck to my plan. I got Liam a high-quality leather journal, a custom pen set, and a framed photo of him and me from a family trip when he was little. I thought it was thoughtful and personal. When he opened it, he was polite and thanked me, but I noticed he didn't seem thrilled like he did with the watch or tech gifts. Jessica, however, immediately started giving me this look, the kind that's somewhere between disbelief and irritation. I didn't think much of it at the time. Later that evening, after most gifts were opened, Jessica pulled me aside. She said, and I quote, "I just don't get it. You can afford more. Why are you giving him a little notebook? Everyone else gave him things that are, well, better. It makes you look cheap, honestly." I tried to explain my reasoning again, calmly, that I wanted it to be meaningful, not expensive, and that I didn't think monetary value defined love or pride. She didn't accept that. She went on about how the kids notice these things, how other people's cousins are getting Rolexes and new laptops, and that I should step up. I stayed calm and repeated my position. I also mentioned I had bought a nice gift for Emma and Noah for their respective milestones in the future, but she didn't seem to care. The party ended awkwardly. On the ride home, I got several texts from other family members subtly hinting that maybe I should have gone bigger or that Liam felt underappreciated. I didn't respond. The next day, Jessica posted on a family group chat something along the lines of, "Some of us really need to think about what generous means, especially when celebrating our kids." Without naming me, it was clearly aimed at me. A few family members chimed in agreeing, and I got tagged indirectly. I finally responded, calmly, explaining my philosophy about gifts, that I prioritize thoughtfulness and meaningful gestures over price tags, that I have financial limits, and that it doesn't mean I love my family any less. Some people agreed. Others thought I was being petty. Jessica hasn't spoken to me directly since the party. Liam and the younger kids have been fine. They send me occasional texts and thank me for gifts, but the vibe at family gatherings has shifted. My parents are supportive of my decision, but some aunts and uncles are clearly upset, acting as if I publicly embarrassed Liam or Jessica. Here's where I start doubting myself. I know I could have spent more money. I could have bought a big-ticket item to fit in with what the other relatives got. But I feel like the underlying issue is that Jessica expects other people to fund her kids' sense of entitlement, rather than teaching them that thoughtfulness matters more than price. I also didn't want to set a precedent that every gift from me has to be extravagant, which I know would be unsustainable. So, Reddit, AITA here? Was I wrong to stick to my budget and values, even though it made some people, including my cousin, upset? Or was everyone else just overreacting about what is essentially a thoughtful, personal gift? Character count, 6,372. AITA for telling my sister she's not entitled to my wedding just because she's my twin? I, 27F, have a twin sister, Emily. Growing up, everyone always lumped us together, the twins, you two the girls. We were treated as a single unit by family, teachers, even friends. We wore matching clothes, got the same gifts, shared the same room, and had to do everything together. As kids, it was cute. As teenagers, it was suffocating. I started trying to differentiate myself around middle school. I dyed my hair darker, joined theater while she stayed in soccer, and started dressing differently. But even then, our parents compared us constantly. Emily was the responsible one, I was the creative one. Emily got good grades. I was the dreamer. The comparisons became exhausting, and by high school, we weren't close anymore. Emily stayed in our hometown after graduation, working at our dad's accounting firm. I moved across the country for college and eventually settled in Oregon, where I met my fiancé, Ryan. We've been together for 4 years and got engaged last winter. My parents were thrilled. Emily congratulated us, and everything seemed fine until the wedding planning started. The first sign of trouble came when I announced our wedding date. Emily called me immediately and said, "That's the same weekend as the local marathon. You know, I run in that every year." I told her I didn't, actually, because I live 2,000 miles away, and she never mentioned it. She got upset and said I should have asked her before picking a date because it affects both of us. I was confused. It's my wedding. I didn't realize I had to coordinate around her extracurricular schedule. She brushed it off, but made a snide comment about how some people only think about themselves. Then came the bridal party discussion. I chose my best friend, Nadia, as maid of honor. Emily assumed it would be her. When I told her it wasn't, she got quiet and said, "That's unexpected. I'm your twin." I explained that while I loved her, Nadia and I were closer and she'd been there for me through everything. Emily said, "That's humiliating. Everyone will wonder why I'm not the maid of honor." I told her she was still welcome to be a bridesmaid, but she said she needed time to think. A week later, she texted that she wouldn't be in the wedding unless she was the maid of honor. I told her that was her choice, but I wasn't changing my decision. She didn't reply. Things escalated 2 months later during a family group call. My mom casually mentioned that both girls are getting married next year. I was like, "What do you mean both?" My mom said Emily and her boyfriend, Mark, had decided to have a small ceremony around the same time so family could attend both while everyone was already together. Apparently, Emily had told them that since we're twins, it would be beautiful symmetry to share the wedding weekend, separate ceremonies, but joint celebrations like twin birthdays. My jaw dropped. I told them I wasn't okay with that at all. My dad said it was practical, since it would save travel costs for relatives. Emily chimed in that it wasn't a competition, and that we could even take twin photos in our dresses. I told her absolutely not. My wedding was mine. She accused me of being selfish, and said she thought it would be special to share the day like we used to share birthdays. I told her I hated sharing birthdays, and I was done being part of the twin package. She hung up on me. After that, she didn't speak to me for months. My mom kept pleading with me to reconsider, saying Emily was heartbroken and felt like I was erasing our bond. I said it wasn't my job to preserve a dynamic that I found unhealthy. Ryan backed me up, saying Emily's expectations were way out of line. Then last month, Emily sent out her own wedding invitations for the exact same date as ours. Different city, same day, no warning. When I confronted her, she said she wasn't copying me, but since I didn't want to share, she had every right to celebrate, love her way. I pointed out that this meant our family would have to choose which wedding to attend. She said she didn't care because the ones who really support both of us will find a way. Our parents are now split. Mom is attending hers. Dad is coming to mine. Extended family is divided. It's become this ridiculous competition I never wanted. Last week, my mom called crying, saying Emily was devastated that no one understands her. Apparently, Emily has been telling people that I stole her dream of a twin wedding and that I've always tried to separate myself from the family. I lost it and told Mom I was tired of being guilt-tripped over her feelings. I said Emily is 27, not 7, and if she can't handle her sister getting married without her involvement, that's her problem. 2 days later, Emily posted on Facebook a long rant about betrayal and fake family, without naming me directly but making it obvious. Friends from our hometown started messaging me asking what happened, and I've been getting DMs from people telling me to make amends before it's too late. Now I'm torn. I don't regret setting boundaries, but I feel sick about how ugly it's gotten. I know Emily struggles with identity issues. She's mentioned before how lost she feels when we're apart or when people don't see us as a set. She once told me that when I moved away, it felt like half of her disappeared. Part of me feels guilty for not handling it more gently. But another part of me is exhausted from decades of being treated like one half of a person, I've spent so much of my life trying to carve out space for myself, and it feels like every time I do, Emily tries to pull me back in. Ryan says I shouldn't give in, that this is about control, not love. My therapist agrees. She thinks Emily is clinging to an identity that doesn't serve either of us anymore. Still, seeing my family divided and my mom crying makes me feel like maybe I could have been kinder or found a compromise. I don't know. Maybe I should have just made her maid of honor, or at least pretended to consider a joint wedding for peace's sake. Maybe I went too hard on the independence thing. Or maybe I'm right to finally draw a line. So Reddit, AITA for telling my twin sister she's not entitled to my wedding, and refusing to make it a twin event no matter how much it hurts her. AITA for refusing to pay for my girlfriend's car repairs, even though I accidentally caused the damage. So I, 29M, have been dating my girlfriend, Emily, 27F, for about a year. Things have been mostly great, but this whole situation has turned into a massive argument, and now all our mutual friends think I'm a jerk. I need some outside opinions because I feel like I'm being unfairly painted as the villain here. Emily has a small SUV that she absolutely loves. It's not new or fancy, but she takes great care of it. She's one of those people who actually names her car, it's Daisy, keeps it spotless, and keeps up with every maintenance schedule. I, on the other hand, drive an older sedan that's seen better days. Last month, Emily and I planned a weekend trip to visit my parents, who live about 4 hours away. We decided to take her car because it's newer and more comfortable. The drive there was fine, and we had a really good time with my family. On Sunday, before heading back, I offered to drive so she could relax. I'm a confident driver, and she said sure, no problem. Here's where things went south. About halfway home, we stopped at a gas station. It was a small, rural one, and the parking area was a bit cramped. I misjudged the distance when pulling out of the parking space and ended up scraping the passenger side of her car against one of those low concrete posts. The noise was awful, and the scrape ran across both doors. I immediately felt horrible. Emily jumped out, looked at the damage, and just stared at me. She didn't yell. She just said, "You've got to be kidding me." I apologized right away and said I'd cover the repairs. She didn't say much for the rest of the drive home. The next day, she took the car to a body shop. The quote came back, around $1,700. I was shocked. I expected maybe a few hundred, not almost $2,000. I told her I'd think about how to handle it, because that's a lot of money for me right now. She didn't push it that day. Here's some background. I'm currently paying off student loans and saving to move out of my apartment. My lease is up soon. I don't have that kind of cash sitting around. I can maybe pay $200 to $300 right now, but not the full amount. A few days later, she asked if I had called the shop or figured anything out. I told her that after thinking about it, I didn't think I should have to pay the full repair cost. My reasoning was that it was a genuine accident, not something reckless or intentional, and we're in a relationship where sometimes things happen. I suggested we split the cost 50/50ths since we were both using the car for a trip together. Emily lost it. She said it was her car, I was driving it, and I was fully responsible for the damage. I tried to explain that accidents happen and that it wasn't like I crashed into someone or was texting while driving. It was a minor scrape in a tight parking lot. I said splitting it seemed fair. She called that ridiculous and said I was trying to make her pay for my mistake. We didn't talk for a day after that argument. Then she texted me saying she was extremely disappointed in me for backing out of my word and showing that I don't take accountability. I replied that I wasn't backing out. I was just trying to find a fair solution that didn't completely wreck my finances. I even suggested going through her insurance, but she said her deductible was $1,000 and it would still raise her premiums, so that made no sense. I told her maybe she should get a few more quotes or look for a cheaper shop, but that just made her angrier because she said I was trying to get out of paying instead of just owning up to what I did. The tension between us has been awful since. We've been distant, and she's told some of her friends, who are also part of our friend group. Now, they're all saying I'm being manipulative and cheap, that if I damaged her property, I should make it right completely. I honestly didn't think it would blow up like this. From my perspective, I didn't do anything malicious. I'm already stressed about money, and I feel like she's treating me like some random stranger who hit her car in a parking lot. We're supposed to be partners. I thought splitting it would show I'm willing to take responsibility and acknowledge that we're in this together. It's also not like she's struggling financially. She makes a bit more than I do and has savings. I know that shouldn't matter, but it's part of why I thought she might understand my position better. Instead, she told me she can't trust me anymore and that my reaction says everything about my character. The thing that's eating at me is that I did offer to pay right after it happened. I didn't mean to backtrack. I just hadn't realized how much the repair would cost. If it had been $500, I would have paid without hesitation. But $1,700 feels like a whole other level. I even told her I'd cover the next few oil changes or something as a gesture, but she said that's not the same. My brother said he kind of understands my point. Accidents happen, but my mom told me bluntly that if I damage someone's car, I should pay, even if it hurts financially, because that's what being responsible means. Now I'm sitting here wondering if I really am being selfish or if Emily's overreacting. It's been 2 weeks since this happened, and she's still distant. She said she won't fix the car until I decide what kind of man I want to be. I feel stuck between wanting to stand by what I think is fair and wanting to save the relationship. I keep going back and forth. Half the time I feel like she's being unreasonable, and the other half I feel like I'm an idiot for not just paying and moving on. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to pay for my girlfriend's car repairs after accidentally scraping it? Or is she being unfair by expecting me to shoulder the entire cost of an accident that wasn't intentional? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.